10 years ago, a bold vision was born, a dream to unite voices, strengthen partnerships, and place early childhood development at the heart of national dialogue in Kenya. My name is Sally Mora. As the programs coordinator of ECD Network for Kenya and a global leader of the World Forum Foundation, I am deeply honored to help tell this story, a story of collective effort, quiet heroism, and unwavering belief in the power of the early years. This is our story, this is our legacy. Welcome.
My name is Professor Teresa Moma. I'm an associate professor at Kenyatta University in the Department of Early Childhood and Special Needs Education. But I'm also the founder and national coordinator, ECD Network for Kenya, which brings together all actors in early childhood to deliberate on issues affecting children.
My name is Frances Aboud, and I'm a professor of psychology at McGill University in Montreal, Canada.
I'm a child psychiatrist by training. I trained in the UK, but I have spent my professional career setting up mental health programs in emergencies for 10 years for a big medical NGO called International Medical Corps, then with different programs as an independent consultant. But during that time, and this was in emergency settings, I became more and more interested in early child development and what happened to the youngest children in emergencies. This is because I saw the need. And that interest in what happens to children in emergencies led then again to an interest in prevention as well as response.
How has early childhood development evolved over the years? What are your views on its evolution ever since it began? And largely with the context of Kenya.
When we think about early childhood development, we look at children right from the time they are conceived up to around the time these children join school. When we think in the context of Kenya, for many years, early childhood development was equated to pre-primary education. So whenever you talk about early childhood, people will start thinking about pre-primary education. But that is not the case. But historically, when we think about how young children were taken care of in order to promote their development, we go back to the pre-independence period when the whites started early childhood centers to care for young mothers' children who were working in plantations, just providing care, looking for one mother who could care for children while the others were working in the plantations.
For a successful early child development, really, it meets one important component, who is just a major stakeholder, the mother. If we don't have healthy mother, both mentally and physically, this ECD will not going to be successful.
We worked with necessity and realized we have to have hands-on. We have to have students who we were training actually get down to understand children. So we had practicums in every course, and they would go out and they would go in classrooms and they would get on their hands and their knees and sit down with children. They would make the toys that children would play with, and they would learn how to actually train someone else to do the same thing. It was wonderful.
Not all the classes were like that, but to some greater or lesser or greater extent, they used the cane. And these children from the project were not used to the cane. They were used to ask questions. They were used to be curious. They were used to playing. They were used to making, the positive sound. Children's laughter can be joyful. Yes. But it can also be very noisy. And you didn't hear the joyful laughter in many of these schools, which is very important because children must play. Children must express themselves in a happy way. And they must learn through all that, right? So this is what was not happening in many of the schools. So there was that disconnect between the project. That time it was still pilot project, and the school. So that was a big lesson that everybody took away, that helped to improve on the quality of the environment. Of course, if you improve the environment, the learning outcomes is better, right?
I'm Henry Kemoli Manani, born and bred in Vihiga, Maragoli. I went to primary school in Maragoli, went to secondary school in Nairobi, from 1 to from 4, from 5 to from 6 in Nairobi, Upper Hill High School. From there, I went to Kenyatta University. After that, I had, in terms of work experience, I taught in a primary school, I taught in a teacher training college, and eventually went to Kenya Institute of Education, which is now known as Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, to start to be in the early childhood program as a curriculum development. That was in 1985.
Talk to us about how successful that looks like in terms of having both caregivers come together. Do they understand these programs? What is the understanding that you get on the ground before you begin the integration and after you've done
I
the
don't think
program?
mothers particularly don't find it difficult, though they're often surprised. I mean, the UNICEF and WHO, since 2018, when they produced their NICE diagram, have promoted what they call a nurturing care framework, and it's addresses all the needs of the child, which means protecting and supporting the parents, security, health, nutrition, education. It's got those blocks around it.
Years have moved. Early childhood development has been appreciated maybe from 2018 with the coming of the nurturing care, where we have had people realizing that for children to develop, their health must be catered for, their nutrition, their protection, their early learning opportunities, and all that. That now gives a new outfit to early childhood development, because now we are looking at the different aspects that help the child to develop in relation to health, their nutrition, their protection, their parenting programs that enhances their development.
Talk to us about what do we need to know, where are we failing, what are some of the key indicators that we're not paying attention to, and these are critical to have great success stories of our children's health and our caregivers' health. Talk to us about that. Let's understand a bit more.
Okay, that's important. You know that just mother is, as I repeatedly saying, just she's the major stakeholder in her child health. We know that pediatricians, general practitioners, nurses, just they know about health. But we need the mother to know what are important signs and the symptoms about the issue of her health, her child health. Because one, maybe she can take measure. Second, just she can run to the doctor to save the life of the child. For example, simple example, just there is diarrhea. The child is with diarrhea. There is no road because it was just broken by the flood or something happened. Just she can't go to the health center. What to do? We are revising and just reintroducing the oral rehydration salt making at home.
You have been around to see the evolution of early childhood in Kenya. Talk to us about, in terms of academia, policies, in terms of the programs that have been there, the curriculum that have served early childhood development. Just, what are your views? What has that evolution been like for Kenya?
It's kind of like a roller coaster. We had some absolutely marvelous programs. The Necesse training programs were outstanding. And then we had some outstanding implications with the policies. There's always politics in everything. And so there could have been some challenges here or there where things were not, perhaps people not working together as well. There were gaps that could have been filled but weren't filled. And those are opportunities for us now.
The interesting part, and still, I still think people still don't know that when you develop the children, the early years between 0 to even up to 7, 8 years, when they are well grounded, you have prepared these people for life in all spheres of life.
And in your view,
Yeah.
what is the impact of framing of words in early childhood? You've just explained right now the way there's change of terminologies.
Yes.
And
The-
how has that impacted
Eh, eh,
ECD in Kenya?
I would say it has some impact because when you now go to the counties,
Yeah.
you'll find that they are taking care of the holistic development of children. Yeah, they are talking about the physical. Some countries are providing food for the children. That is physical. They are providing maybe learning materials for the children.
Yeah.
So all the aspects of development are also they are trying to cater for all the aspects. But then there are other areas like when you look at the social development of children is also inclusive. So the holistic development of the child, I would go for the new ECD, that will be very, very, very practical.
Education has to be holistic. It's not only about learning the academic part of it. It has to be the psychosocial, the affective domain, the psychomotor. It has to be developed.
In your view, what impact has framing had in the early child development context?
I like the nurturing care framework because it brings together both the physical and the mental, for one thing, health, nutrition, and stimulation and play and education. So I like that. That's a good framing.
All children kind of learn language in the same way. They learn a different language, but and maybe the rate of development differs, but they're the same steps. And this is probably tied to brain development to a large extent. So the brains of children around the world are the same. The context is a bit different, but there are certain aspects of context that are similar. Stimulation, for example, responsive stimulation exists in all cultures in a slightly different way, but the essence of responsive stimulation occurs around the world. So there are some contextual differences, but some of these basic things that you need for development, such as hearing language from birth, we know that that occurs around the world. It's not that in certain cultures children need to hear language and in other cultures they don't need to for a couple of years. Everybody needs to hear language from birth. So it's important to distinguish between aspects of context or culture that really are basically the same across countries and aspects that are not the same, and maybe those things are a little bit superficial. Of course, it's important that you learn the language and the ways of greeting of your culture, but the way children learn these things is pretty much the same. And then the concept of responsive is obviously not understood by most people. Most people are fairly directive with children. They sort of think that the brain is empty and you have to put stuff into it, when in fact you really have to provide stimulation that is in response to what the child is interested in looking for. So responsiveness is still a concept that is not well understood. So we are developing some videos that will help workers and parents understand what responsive stimulation is.
In 2010, the Constitution of Kenya devolved pre-primary education, child care facilities, and health care services to the county government, which means when we think about children's education, the county government plays a critical role of ensuring that they provide education for these children. For people to be sensitized, when you talk about early childhood development, you are not thinking about education alone. Education is only one component out of maybe 5. Health included, protection, parenting, and things like that are included. So that is one of the confusions that has come into play because of the different terms. In terms of childcare, we also need to help people understand what it entails, okay, in terms of looking after these children. Who is supposed to look after these children? Who is supposed to provide guidelines on how these children should be kept care of? But because child care facilities are devolved to the county government has a critical role to play to ensure that guidelines are in place and counties are properly guided on how to ensure there are safe childcare spaces where children can be taken to.
And you mentioned there's a time in your career you came together to have concepts of ECD for the Muslim community, Hindu, Christians. What are some of these shareable concepts that maybe that experience gave that was shared across the three, the three various religions and various contexts and concepts?
Yes. You see, for example, music. Music in Islam, it was unacceptable. Music, what is that? So we are telling them, you see, children learn through play and music. So without this, even the things you want to them to practice and do, even if you do, it will take a long time for you to succeed. But if you do through music and movement, and through music, it's just not any music. It's music about mathematics, about science, about life, about nature, and so forth, counting, and so on. So these are the kind of things that we shared, especially with the Muslim community, for them to accept that, yes, through this concept of mathematics, science activities, and other physical activities can come through very well through this kind of program.
When we go down to the community level, and you see within the communities the strengths that they have. And when you use the staff that are there, like we did in Bungoma when we were doing a program with Anita, and you see the strengths that they have, and you can build on those, then your program they adjust to, and they want to keep it going. We set up a program there where it was training caregivers how to take care of very young children up to 3 years old. And we set up a toy lending library, and the grandmothers were making the toys. We had invited the women to be the trainers, and the men wanted to have a role. So we gave them the role of supervisors, which they wanted, as opposed to being the caregiver's trainer. They then took that and developed incredible materials. I wrote a curriculum that they would put which toys for what age and how they would use them. They would check them out to the library, the toy lending library. They would go and take them, play with the children for 2 weeks, and they would take the toys back and they would make more if they needed them. Meanwhile, it was adjusted to them. And after the program ended, it was only a 6-month program. They kept it going for 2 years.
What unique lesson has your vast experience shown that can be a lesson for everybody?
Well, one important lesson is that children around the world are pretty similar. Parents also have similar goals. They want their children to grow up, to make a contribution to their society. They have high aspirations for their children. They want them to be healthy and they want to be well fed. A lot of parents don't understand about the brain. So this has been the big issue is parents often think that simply by providing giving their child health and nutrition, that everything else will come. So they don't know that the brain needs stimulation. They don't know that a child needs to have someone talking to them right from birth. And that's one of the critical things I've learned that I keep saying over and over again. It's not this concept of
The early years are the formative years, right? And everybody knows that even when we don't act upon it.
Yeah.
But I think that is where one of the gaps I see is in the whole issue of socialization, gender socialization. We don't pay enough attention to that. We somehow, when we talk about caregiving, right, and the role of the mother, the father, and so on, there's a lot of resurgence of that right now.
Yeah.
But we also forget that there have been certain disruptions to society. For the girl and the boy, up to a certain age, it was the mother who used to take care of the child. For the boy, after a certain age, it was the father who took over, about 6, 7 years old, right? Which is still early childhood, right?
Yeah.
But I think the disruption that was caused by the whole colonial experience, right? That I think we're still recovering from. And even when we look at the issue of the early socialization, and I'm not saying that we should not change, we have to change to survive. Sometimes change is slower, sometimes change is faster. But we learn to be a human being, to be a man or a woman, a girl or a boy, and you also have the intersex child that nobody wants to think about. But we learn our roles through that process of socialization. And one of the, maybe for me, a takeaway is we need to interrogate carefully. We don't say, this is what was in our traditions. Actually, no. Sometimes what we say is our tradition is a mix up of what came in through the colonial experience, the evangelization of Africa. So we no longer know what was actually happening in indigenous Africa.
You know, Prof, listening to you speak, I'm learning a lot. And what unique lesson has your vast experience shown that can be a lesson for all?
My experience has shown me that people in Kenya tend to do things in silos. Those who are in health, they tend to they are focusing on this one child, whom at the end of the day, those in education are also focusing when that child turns 4. And those in the care sector are also focused in terms of providing care services, and harmonization or coordination of all these services has not been properly done. And I think the best way is to have government take lead in terms of coordinating all the initiatives around the child.
Well, any parting shot for us? Any last words you can share with us?
Yeah, I guess I would like to say that I know people talk about context matters, and it certainly does, but so do similarities. And that it's important not to lose sight of that. That parents show love in a similar sort of way. Some of them are more touchy, some of them do it through smiling, some of them do it through words, but it's communicated in one way or another. It's the essence of what gets communicated. The essence of
Yeah, about ECT, we still have a long way to go because we have been trying to move one step forward and some other steps backward. So, and then there were when I worked with the ministry, we used to have things moving. For example, when I was very young, I worked with people like Dr. Uruch. Dr. Uruch is, I think he's still alive, is in Bondo. Those are people who would move the curriculum according to the needs of the community. They listen to what we are calling Wajiko or Mora. They listen to Mora. What is Mora saying about the child? What is Mora saying that we must bring back ECD certificate? Is that Mora or Wajiko saying that we must have ECD as a distinct component of education, not be infused in other in the entire in the education whatever teacher education curriculum. We don't want ECD to be infused. We want a teacher to come from a school teaching ECD, so that when you are teaching ECD, you can go and work in US, you can go and work in Canada, in that with that particular specialization.
I think it's very important to build on your community's resources. If you go to the community and use their resources and bring others around them that they can trust, then you will actually have the community take your ideas and try to understand them better and incorporate them. And the people who are with them will help them interpret in case there's some language that they don't understand because we're from another community.
Once you accumulate what is happening elsewhere, oh, so what we are doing here is also happening in Australia. Oh, that thing that's taking place in Australia, we can also do it here. We haven't, but the way it's being done, we can do it here. So that richness, that bringing together of all this knowledge accumulated, some very traditional practices and so forth, which have evolved over the years and perfected, becomes an in thing, and that's how you start unifying the world and understanding of the development of the children. Yes.
I want to encourage all Kenyans who have children at heart to take it forward that children need all of us, and we need to support each child regardless from where we are, whether we are in health, in education and all that, and we all work together. For policymakers, policy tends to take a little bit long to be completed, like the IECD policy that I mentioned. I encourage policymakers to be quick in making those policies, finalizing them, but also seeking support from the other actors to be able to implement, because it's one thing to make a policy, it's another to implement. While government may have played their part in developing policies that will provide guidelines on how children should be supported, other stakeholders from state and non-state actors have a critical role to play to ensure that these policies are implemented. And the non-state actors include the civil society organizations, the UN agencies, the private sector, and everybody, including the researchers and the academia. All of us have a role to play to ensure that we give our best to the children.
So yeah, I guess it is important just every sectors, especially this child development in the health area, just to contribute for this type of intervention, because that will be helpful. Because if we have just if you have everybody to contribute something, that will make it just more important, and that it add value.
if you have everybody to contribute something, it adds value. I think that's
Yes.
my takeaway from the